We're in part 5 today. And it's we're going to bring it to a close. And somebody said, "What happens to you? Why does this? Why do you do it this way?" And I don't know, except that I have committed to not leave any present stone unturned. I have good morning, Edens. Good morning, Renee. God bless you all the way out in Seattle. Okay, today. I have determined not to leave any present stone unturned. And what do you mean by that? That I am going to stay in this room until I feel like, okay, have I said all that I see? And it starts out in my notes as just tell them about spiritual jurisdiction and territories. And then by the time I get in that room, it's like, okay. And I just committed a long time ago in this part of my life to get it all out. And it's very difficult because sometimes I feel like people are like, just move on, or I've already heard this, or I already know this. And it may be beneficial for me to just say a quick thing and move on to the next thing. But that benefit is only in the immediate, and it's certainly not beneficial for you because over the weeks, as you've seen, clarity coming. And I have a concluding point today in this. I have an ABC, and when I get to C, I believe something's going to open up for you, open up for you personally, in a new dynamic way. And so that's all I'm going to say on that. All right. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Spiritual jurisdiction, part 5 today on the exciting conclusion. I'll say it one more time. This will be in your notes. There are territorial matrices that are part and parcel of spiritual adventure. What do you mean matrices? There are births. Good morning, Thomas. There are births. There are births. You will gestate. You will be in wombs. There will be multiple wombs throughout your life. Olivia had this thing when she was going to college. She was a senior in high school. I guess seniorita. I don't really know what that works, but she was a seniorita in high school, and she kept saying, "Dad, I'm so nervous about picking the right school and choosing the right degree." And she kept saying in her 16-year-olds going into 17-year-old going in that senior year, this is a decision for the rest of my life. And I got, this is going to affect the rest of my life. And it hit me, when you're young, you think you have one lifetime. But as you walk through life, you realize you have many lifetimes. And there are many lifetimes that you will live. And those many, M-A-N-Y, lifetimes come out of these many, M-I-N-I, wombs. You have the womb that you came from, right? And then that biological, physiological womb, you say, well, I was, one guy said he wasn't born as much as he fell out, right? And some of you were born cesarean, right? You went out the window instead of the door, but that's old Howie Mandel. You're born there, and then there are subsequent wombs in the spirit, places of gestation and deposit, subsequent births, stretching and pressing and pass-throughs into subsequent jurisdictions and territories. And each one of these jurisdictions and territories becomes a new womb, a new place of deposit and development and gestation. And we do these cycles. We talked about last week that they must be revered, womb to womb, developing, nourishing, birthing to birthing, stretching to stretch, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And we said one thing last week, and then Pop called and I said, I'm going to add that into this week. Each new jurisdiction is your next womb. Each new place that God brings you into. You talk about born again, right? And boy, my definition of that has certainly changed as I moved out of weaponized religion. But you talk about my conversion experience. Many of you had a conversion experience. I was living this place and living this way, and I had this thing, and I said this prayer, and I was in a guitar shop, or I was in a bar, or I was in my cousin's backyard, or I was at church, whatever. And you say, I was born again. There's a womb. That's a macro womb, right? You can identify that was the time of new birth. But when I went to dropped out of high school and moved from Orlando to Atlanta, that was a new territory, a new jurisdiction. Not only a jurisdiction that was new geographically, right, but it was a jurisdiction that was new in the spirit. But moving to Atlanta, that new sphere was not an end unto itself. I was in another period of gestation. I was working and Bible schooling, and I went through all that. And there's women, and then I got moved into ministry, and I became an associate minister. And so my operational, functional sphere shifted. I was putting new gifts to work, and those early days of ministry were new jurisdiction. They were also a new womb. God was doing something in me there, and then I became an associate pastor, and God was doing something there, and then I became, different positions in life. And you think, and there's stretching, and there's pain, and there's difficulty, and there's trusting God and holding on to God in each thing. And there's you got your first trimester, so it was rough, but then the second trimester was, and then I'm back in my third trimester, so it's getting close. All those feelings of natural gestation, birthing, etc., the pushing, all of those things, the settling into the birth canal and the effacing of the uterus, all these different things, these parallel this journey in the spirit. And so each new jurisdiction becomes a womb. But here's something Pop said last week. He said, I thought about this. He said, wombs are comfortable. Birth is what's hard. And I thought about that with my own kids. You don't want to leave the womb. As a matter of fact, many times you kind of go out and kind of look what's going on. You say, nah, thanks. And you just go right back in. And one of the things you have to watch is that what at one time was a territory granted to you has now become a comfortable womb to you. And sometimes you don't want to leave that womb. You don't want to go through that birthing to get to that next place because it is hard. Both of my children did not want to leave. They were happy. They were fine. And they said, look, if Mikey doesn't show up, we're going to, come out, you varmint, or we're going to go in after you. And they threatened him, and then they threw in the tear gas, and they had to smoke him out. And even then, he did not want to depart because wombs are comfortable. And there are places where you just, why? Because when jurisdictions are foreign to you, they're foreign. But when they become native to you, when you're born into them, they're native, and this is home. And each new jurisdiction becomes home. But it's just a womb home. And it's just a temporary thing, because there will be a stretching in your adventure with God that God wants to bring you higher. I hope you're catching what I'm saying today. So we left off, and I got some typos here, but that's all right. In your notes, it's possible to seat yourself in the lower flow. I just want to get there. It's possible to seat yourself in the lower flow. When we talk about jurisdiction, we're talking about seating yourself in the flow. And it's possible not in the higher flow of the spirit, but in the lower flow of self-effort. It's possible to seat yourself in that lower flow. Where self-effort and manipulation are used to wiggle your way into territories, to wiggle your way into spheres. It's possible to manipulate your way into doors that you shouldn't be in. It's possible to whine and tantrum your way. It's possible, I think, here's a strange thing, to diligence your way. And when you diligence your way into something, I'm just going to work hard and I'm going to get there. And there's nothing wrong with working hard. And there's nothing wrong with getting there. But you'll often find that you'll be into a place and the armor and the clothing doesn't really suit you. And true insiders, sometimes you go into a place and insiders resent your presence because they don't want you there, because you're a threat to them, and that happens, right? But sometimes you go into a place and insiders aren't not wanting you there. They look at you and they know you're not one of them. They know you got here. You didn't just get here through hard work. You got here through a falsification of self. You got here aspiring, mimicking, jumping someone else's train, that you learn the coach, you learn the words, you've taken on a new persona and a personality, and it was not a natural spiritual process of gestation, deposit, development, birthing, being access granted, access designated, access allocated, but you just kind of forced your way in. And when you're in a territory that you got there with self-effort, with manipulation, with hard work, you can tell, and I don't know how to explain it to you. I do know how to explain it to you. I'll do my best. There's a tone in the spirit. Like a tuning fork, hit that thing and it puts out it's going on. And that tone is right at an A or right at an E. Or there are frequencies, that animals can hear. I don't even know if this still works anymore. But they had a theory at one time, putting those little horn whistles on the front of your car, right on your bumper, because as the wind went through them, you would hear the heat, and they would say that would alert deer, don't come out on the road. And I don't know if it alerts deer to don't come out on the road, or if deer are like, you hear that? Let's go check it out. I don't know. It might be working in the wrong direction. What's that noise? But I do know that there are frequencies that Connie there are exactly. I just saw Eric on. There are frequencies that Kenobi can hear that are just not native to my ear, and there is a tone in the spirit, and when you're proficient in something, when you are wearing your actual clothes, when you are bringing forth your actual self. There's an authenticity to it, and people love to partake of authenticity. Authenticity is one of the greatest commodities that you'll have. The true you operating in your true season for the audience of heaven, for the benefit of human beings. Partaking of that authentic thing is a blessing. Something feigned, something manufactured, it can look almost like the real thing, but there's a tone, there's a frequency, and you can look. There are people always talk about preachers, and those of you who are part of the church, I don't even like the doctrine that I preached for some 3 decades. I came to personal faith in Christ in 1988, but I didn't become a Christian until October 2020. I had no idea who Christ was, what Christ's life and death meant, what it meant to follow him. But I found out. And I look back on my time there, and I think, the chassis that 30-year period of ministry was riding on was entirely contrary to Christ. But my heart, while I was riding on those train tracks, my heart knew that the larger truth was not anchored to these train tracks. And so my authenticity was there. But people often talk about preachers, and preachers are just scum, and preachers are this, and they all manipulate and all that kind of stuff. And maybe they are. Maybe there are some who are. But in all my years, and all the pastors and all the ministers that I dealt with, even in false weaponized religion, I found them up to the highest level. Good morning, Karen. I found them up to the highest level to be genuine and authentic, sincere, even if sincerely wrong. But there were a couple, and by a couple I mean you can count them on one hand. I really can only think of 2, but I'll say 2 that I can think of and 2 that I forgot about. That they got up and they said the words. They said the key words. They had the rhythm. They had the pentameter. They had the fluctuation. They had the emotion. But there was a tone in the spirit. And you just knew when you sat under it. This is not a person pressing into God sincerely for the benefit of the sincere enriching and advancement of the people's lives. This is someone who has learned a behavior, who has learned to mimic and to ape an activity, and down to the shoulder move and the finger point. But you could just tell it wasn't the real thing. And so you can, through self-effort, get to a place. You can put on a business owner hat. You can manipulate somebody to get a management position, blah, blah, blah. But if you get there and the custom clothing is not there for you, and here's the thing, you may not have the fully sharpened skill to operate with proficiency. But if you have the eye, the skill can be developed. If you have the heart, the skill can be. If you have the chops, people just look at you and say, you're really good at this. They look at you and see you fit in the role. And then you look at other people and you see they're aspiring to something that is not theirs. And so the low flow manipulation. It's possible to wiggle your way into territories and spheres, but that doesn't mean in your notes that you belong there. Just because you can get in there doesn't mean you belong there. It doesn't mean that the clothes, the uniform is suited to you. Doesn't mean it fits you. And here's my question, and you can have this in your notes here, but why would you ever want to be in a place that the Spirit has not gone ahead of you and prepared a way for you? Why would you want to be anywhere? Well, people will look at me and think this is prestigious. And, well, if I had that on my resume, a lot of my friends have businesses and they're life coaches, so I went and got my degree. Yeah, but does that fit you? You did the necessary steps, but was the Spirit there preparing the place for you ahead of you? That's the thing. The provision is ahead of you. The preparation is ahead of you. You want to get to a jurisdiction and find that God has gone before and made arrangements. And you say, oh, wow, look at this. I see that before I got here, the jurisdiction, the spiritual jurisdiction inside me went ahead and carved out a place that now my convergence, right? We talked about that before. There is a vision of us, right? And it exists out here. Then there's the actual us, and it exists here. And when the actual us steps into that vision form, right? Joseph had a dream that one day the sun and the moon and the 11 stars would bow down and that he would be in a place of leadership. Well, that was out here in vision form. But one day he stepped into that place. He stepped into that place. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to say, well, look, I manipulated this and I got it on my resume and I got this degree and I worked real hard and I got this school and I always wanted to show that I went to Harvard Tech or to Princeton Polytechnic. I wanted to show everybody that Princeton on my thing, and look what I got that now. But if it was all of the lower self, you got it, but it wasn't for you. And that's the low flow. That's the low flow. All right, let's move on here. One of my favorite statements, I read this on a calendar a long time ago. It may have been Far Side. I don't know which one it was. Could have been Snoopy. Dilbert, maybe. But it said, if God has called you to be a missionary, don't stoop to become a king. I love that. If God's called you to be a missionary, and I don't know about calling, I'm saying follow your fruit, follow the flow of your gift cluster. But to say, look at the plaque on my door. Yeah, but if the spirit allocation is in a place that doesn't have that same prestige, I would choose spirit allocation for my life every single time. Every single time. All right. When God does this for you by divine process, when God puts you in a place by divine process, and I want to say this about divine process doesn't always equal a long period of time waiting. Well, it's a long process. Sometimes it's instant. Why? It's instant on the surface because the deposit and development time under the surface were a long work. But that jurisdiction is yours. Now, here we go. No spiritual jurisdiction is foreign territory after you've entered it. It's always native to you. When you're born there, when you were birthed by the Spirit into that place, owning a business, starting your publication, writing, becoming a tutor, a preacher, getting your degree, or taking care of seniors, or whatever that is. When you were born into it by the Spirit, when the Spirit gestation, birthing, and occupation, then you're not an outsider. That is native to you. And even if you're feeling in your notes here, was that of being an outsider? I got there and everybody kind of looked at me weird. It doesn't matter. This was granted to you by the Spirit. It is yours. And sometimes it does feel foreign because the adventure of the Spirit will take you to a place beyond your raisings. It'll take you to a place that, how in the world did I get here? And sometimes I've been to places where I got into a place and I don't look anything like these people here at all. God, why am I in this place? And people look at you and say, what are you doing? You don't dress the part. You don't have that polish. You don't have that glow. Why are you here? Because God carved out a place for me here. But once you're there, you can never undo the feeling of having been there, of having been, this is in your notes and I'm going quick, of having been there, of having been among them, of having been among them and things that are natural and native to them, and you'll never be shocked again. You go to your first cotillion, your second cotillion's not shocked. You go into your first, I went to an inauguration, a presidential inauguration. Man, there's 1,500 different balls going on, and we had tickets to this one and tickets to that one, and you don't know what's going on. The Secretary of the Navy's hosting this, and you're doing this, and man, we didn't know. We just walked in this first time. But once you've been to it, once you've been there, right? You've been there. It's not foreign to you ever again. It's not that it will be an old hat experience, but it will never be, I don't know what that's like. You've been among them. You've been among things that were native to them, that were new to you, but now that thing that was native, that was foreign to you, is no longer foreign to you. You may not be as fully versed in it as they are, but you're never an outsider again. Why? Because you have been brought to that place. I don't even know if you're catching what I'm saying. That's fine. You can never experience it again as uninitiated. As a matter of fact, the next presidential inauguration that I go to, which will be a real hoot if that ever happens, you will know a lot has changed if you ever see me at a presidential inauguration. The next presidential inauguration that I go to for inauguration weekend, and this dance and that dinner and this thing and that thing and this guy and this, that, and that photo opportunity, the next one that I go to, I'm going to act like I belong. You know, I always try to, even if I don't know what's going on, you always try to keep a poker face, right? You always try to say, I mean, behind the doors, you get in the limousine, you may be like, oh my gosh, can you believe what that was? But you never let them see geek out, right? I'll never again experience it as uninitiated. And even though that jurisdiction may not be where the Lord has assigned you operationally, that God hasn't said, this is where I want you to function, its potentiality is never beyond your possibility. That's just a fancy way of saying this. Maybe you were a business owner. There were times when I ran in politics. There was a time when I was a corporate advisor. There was a time that I sat with presidents and prime ministers and Fortune 50 CEOs. There was a time that I did that. That time is not now. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sitting in an apartment giving you everything that I have. That time is that's not where my operation is, right? But the potentiality of that is not beyond me. That if I ever got the call and felt the prompting, and when I went ahead there and went into that boardroom and sat down and did my thing, it wouldn't be like, man, I can't believe this. Can you believe we're here? Can you believe who that is? Did you see who just walked by? Did you hear who that is? That guy's worth $14 billion. But again, you just walk up and say, oh man, Phil, good to see you again. Why? Because it may not be where you are operationally, but you've been there and you've done that. And that territory, even though that was a womb that birthed me to somewhere else, I'm in this jurisdiction now. No interest in being in any other jurisdiction. But those previous jurisdictions, they're not out of my potentiality. They're not out of my possibility. Why? Because those are territories. I already have a passport in and out of that gate. Your relationship, once you moved in it, has gone from imagination to beholding. I said, man, can you imagine what it'd be like to have people pay you to come in and advise their Well, there was an imagination there, but I moved beyond imagination. I beheld that. Well, can you imagine just being able to do a series and not have to rush and to take your time and to have a place for you? Well, I imagine that. When I was an associate, there it is. When I was an associate minister, I could only imagine what it'd be like to, I preached a Wednesday, and then 4 weeks later I preached a Friday, and then 7 weeks later I preached a Wednesday, and once a year I preached a Sunday, and I get to the end of my notes and say, man, I got more to say. I wish I could continue, but I can't. And by the time the thing comes around again 7 weeks later, the pastor's on a different series. You can't go back to that. People wouldn't even remember where you were if you started. So you just find out what the pastor's doing and pick up right where she's at. And you just try to compliment that thing. But oh man, I can imagine just really instead of getting in the car going, oh, I wish I'd got to that next point. I can imagine having a place where I can come back and get to that next point. Guess what? I don't imagine that anymore. I beheld it. Here we go. You've operated in places relationally. Operationally, in places of authority. And when you go back to that place, you will feel what we read in Psalm 126 last week. you will feel a restored to fortune. The Hebrew phrase is, or the English phrase of the Hebrew is, a turning of captivity. This is just, I have no interest in going back to corporate America. That's not my point. I have no interest in advising politicians and getting into that. Somebody said, what happened with you and politicians? I found out something as a pastor, and this is maybe more than you want to know, that everybody just wants you to use your spiritual influence to affect their vote. Every party would call me as a pastor. Well, so-and-so, Mayor so-and-so wants you to meet. Sheriff so-and-so says come down. So I'd love to come down. I want to come down and talk about the issues. They want to smile and get through the issues. And then when election time comes around, Pastor, listen, I know we had a conversation. Would you mind doing X, Y, and Z for me? And I realized after the third or fourth person coming through there, you want to come talk to me. You want to say you've talked to me. You want to say you took my phone call so that when election time comes around, you can say, now, really. And I'm like, I'm not on either of your parties. Jesus isn't coming to your party. I'm not loyal to an elephant or a donkey. I'm loyal to the lamb. I mean, this was my mindset. And so I just thought, wow, I was moving in these political circles and people come over and introduce me to this and that and this city council and that mayor and this. Have you met the sheriff? Have you met Senator so-and-so? Oh, yeah, it's good to meet this guy here. He's really making a difference in the city. And then I finally realized that what they need is people making a difference in the city. They need those people who are making a difference in the city to look like they're associated with them while in office. And that makes them look good that they're somehow associated with people making a difference in the city. And then when it's time to get voted, come around, they say, hey, would you come down and take some pictures, and would you mind if Mayor so-and-so just came and said a few words? And I realized, no, what did Dr. King say? Right when he punched that guy in the chest, he said, man, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else. But before that, the speech he was leaving, Dr. King said this. He said the church is not the master of the state, nor is it the slave of the state. It should be the conscience of the state. That was my job. My job was to sit with whoever was there and say, hey, here is what dignity looks like in the city, and to call them and hold them accountable to dignity. They said, yeah, you're right. Amen. Would you mind praying for me? And then, hey, it's election time. You think I could get just 5 minutes on your pulpit? And so I have no desire at all to go back to that, to play that game anymore. Of course, you've seen how pastors have been prostituted, and I'm not sure who's using who in this hour, but there's a lot going on. I have no desire. But if I ever go back and there's a restoration of that sphere of influence, it'll be a return to, it'll be a turning of the captivity. I'll find myself in a place where I say, well, I haven't been in that place in about, well, I guess it's been about 9 years I haven't been in that place. And somebody say, wow, you're back in that place again. Yeah, that's a return to a territory that was granted. Now, let's just move on. Here we go. There is a hierarchy to these. Think of Joseph, his own house, Potiphar's house, in the prison, Pharaoh's house, the most powerful politician in the world, the prime minister of Egypt, the largest, most powerful nation in the world at the time, empire. Joseph is second in command. And what did Joseph say? God has made me a father to Pharaoh. God has given, Pharaoh comes to me and says, Jojo, what should I do next? Jojo dancer, the Pharaoh's calling, right? Each matrix broken through for Joseph. He was native, born into his father's house. But then he occupied Potiphar's house and became in charge of everything. If he ever walked back in there again, it bowed to him, not the other way around. Then the prison, then Potiphar. And they said, give Joseph a ring, give him a chariot. When anybody comes through, you shout, bow the knee. When you see this ring, you know Pharaoh is coming through there. Almost every failure in a nation is a pulpit failure. It's because people in political power who are not aligned with the mission of Christ, the mission of God, are allowed entree and to enjoy affirmation from those whose job it is to contend for that alignment. And sometimes you don't know, does councilman so-and-so or president so-and-so or senator so-and-so, do they not have anybody in their lives? Does the Esther not have a Mordecai saying, don't do it that way, do it this way? I don't know. Or maybe they have one, but they're giving bad advice. Or maybe they're giving advice, but they're just ignoring it. But now the most powerful human being on planet Earth, Pharaoh, is now the second most powerful person on planet Earth. Why? Because the second most powerful, who's Pharaoh, is looking to Potiphar, to looking at Joseph and say, tell me how to do this. Tell me where I should do this. What money should I set aside? Who should I look out first? Should I let these people in? Should I keep these people out? I mean, that is the order of things, but you can't get there in false religion. Each new matrix, each another new level of belonging. But don't mistake, here we go. I feel like I'm just talking this morning. Don't mistake being experientially familiar with something as falling into the dullness of familiarity. That's a big thing. I'm experientially familiar with that political thing. I'm experientially familiar with working with multi-billion-dollar industries and corporations and them coming saying, hey, we want you to help our people, help our team, help affect our culture. That is experientially familiar to me. I'm experientially familiar to speaking to 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people, preaching that. I'm experientially familiar with that. But I don't want to fall into the sin or the misstewardship known as familiarity. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean you should enter into familiarity. What? Always treat that sphere with reverence. What I mean by that is if a politician did reach out and said, look, I really want to talk to you. I really want to talk to you. I had a member of our church get nominated and win and enter into political office. And he said, look, I know you don't really do this, but would you mind, because I don't want to be down here as a Democrat or Republican, I want to be down here as part of the Lamb Party. Would you mind just coming in and being part of my swearing in? And I thought, yeah, I'd like to do that. And somebody say, well, was it the inauguration in Washington? No, it wasn't. Was it a Fortune 50 corporation you're advising? No, it wasn't. Was it millionaires and billionaires that you were teaching about life and family and how to conduct? No, it wasn't. It was a city government that needed people of God to care about people. It was the front lines of what God was doing. And even though I could say, well, have you been to swearing-ins before? Yes, I have. Have you been to these type of things? Yes, I have. So it's familiar. Yeah, it's familiar, but I would not go into it with familiarity. I prayed. I believed God. I declared. I walked in there and said, Lord, I thank you that I step into the full mantle of this, and that as I release my blessing on this man and this and this woman and this, I mean, what do I do? What? Because you don't want to get to the, I've already been there, done that, and mistreat now the jurisdiction. It was, I hadn't functioned in that for 4 or 5 years. I had left that in my rearview mirror. Go to Washington, meet with this. You want to come in and help set policy on the exempt organization? Now I'm not interested in that anymore. But when the invitation came into the sphere, when that sphere of penetration came into the sphere, and I felt like the Spirit said, yeah, get down there involved in that, it was familiar to me, but I didn't treat it with familiarity. Why? Because I always want to steward, not the opportunity. The opportunity, you can rank, is this a big opportunity, a small opportunity, a big platform, or a small platform? You're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. You got the right ta-ta, but the wrong TT. What you should be looking at is, God, you have granted access to me here. I want to go in here with the full might and weight and wisdom of the Spirit on me as I walk through the door. Are you listening to what I'm trying to say? If you're a teacher and you teach a class, I just teach 5 years. There's no such thing as just teaching 5-year-olds. If you work in a children's ministry in a nursery, well, I just work with it. There's no such thing as just working. You are the hands beneath the potter's hands, shaping and impacting families and generations. Yeah, but I've been doing it for 10 years, and my kids, and I took off, or my kids were young, but now I'm back. It's an old territory to me. It's familiar. Do not let yourself enter into familiarity. You treat every service with prayer. You treat every child as though you've got the future world changer in your care. They're going to say, I was in that 2-year-old class. That lady changed my life. What? It's familiar, yeah, but you don't ever enter into the misstewardship of familiarity. I tell my kids that all the time. Because what happens is you just break new territories. I did this, and well, now I'm doing that. I started out doing this, and I was so grateful, but those little things over there don't mean anything to me. Well, the problem is accomplishment and prestige. One day you get as high as you can get. You climb to the top of the caterpillar's pillar, and there ain't no place else to climb. And then you got to have meaning. And the meaning is not in accomplishment. The meaning is in the manifestation of yourself. How does my self come to bear? How does who God brought me and made me and shaped me in these multiple wombs in my life, how do I bring all of that God development and deposit to bear in this situation? And you end up going back down 30 levels below your highest height, and you walk into it and you treat it with all the freshness and all the goodness and all the love and all the power and all the Holy Spirit. Help me now. Don't fail me now. I need you now more than ever. Oh, you don't need now more than ever. You've done 50 movies. You've been to the Oscars. You've been to this. You've been to that. What do you care about this little student film? No, I absolutely needed the Holy Spirit's help on my very first film when I was holding the slate backwards. I didn't even know what I was doing. I needed the Holy Spirit's help then. Why? Because it was in me and on me. I was learning, but God had brought me there. It was unfamiliar, but it was mine, and people could see it on me. You got this, and the fact that I'm still growing in this means I didn't get there by imposturing myself to there. But when you go back, you don't go, oh, I don't need the Holy Spirit now. No, now more than ever. And when you say, well, it's familiar, I'm not implying at all that a disciple seeing Jesus raise the fifth person from the dead would not still be amazed. It's like, how'd it go today, Peter? Oh, he raised somebody from the dead. Oh, okay. Anything else happen? I mean, you just don't want to get to that. I mean, God is working through me, man. God is doing something through me. God manifesting that the Spirit within and my jurisdiction and my territory within. Somebody on the outside sees it and they get to partake of the authentic fruit of it. That's never how to go. Yeah, it was all right. It was all right. There was a few people there. I mean, it was dead, but it wasn't like a 4-day dead. The guy had been dead 20 minutes. It's not like a Lazarus dead or anything like that. Nor am I suggesting that it'll ever be the first time again. You can treat it fresh, but it'll never be the first time again. You know the old thing, the little cartoon, the guy, and you don't have to have this in your notes, but the lady comes home after work. She takes off her shirt and takes off her bra and lets the twins run loose, and the guy's just like, ah, and she's like, oh gosh, we've been married 10 years. You've seen this 1,000 times. He said, I've seen 15,000 sunsets. I'm amazed every time. I'm not suggesting that it gets old. Even if Connie and I, and again, you don't need this in your notes, but even if Connie got raptured and I ended up remarrying, I had a honeymoon. My new wife is objectively inferior or superior or better in this area or not in this area, or I don't know, a better dancer. Maybe she's an ambi-turner. I don't know. But I could never be as unsure as I was the first time. I'll never have that same curiosity and wonder. Not that there's new things to discover. Not that you say, well, I've seen the sunset. I guess you've seen one, you've seen them all. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying you let it become cold, and this is what happens in marriage. My dad told me this. My dad told me, as my kids are growing up, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nieces and nephews on my side. I got coming up on 21, 18, 16, and then I got coming up on 6, and will he be 3 or 2? He'll be 3, yeah. So from 2 to 21 are my nieces and nephews. And when my kids, my dad just, he's watching my little niece and nephew now, going to be 6, coming up on 3 after the first of the year there. He says, all I do is sit there and laugh at them all day. Mike, just watching them. They're so funny. They're so funny. He's so funny. Watching this little one. And it's fascinating. But when my kids were that age, he told me this. He said, Mike, there's a trick about parenting. And it's the same trick about marriage, same trick about work, same trick about ministry, same trick about everything else, where you say, the kids stop being cool at around 5 or 6. Once you've seen them take their first bike, their first step, their first this, that they're ceased to be fascinating. He said, I'll have you know. He said, they're fascinating to watch them grow at 12, at 14, at 17. He says, you're coming up on 40, and I am just thrilled over the moon watching you grow. an encounter and watching you have experiences with your children. What I'm saying, you say, well, I'm so familiar with it. Familiar is fine. Familiarity is wrong. There's a freshness that we have to hold on to, because a lot of times we think, I got there myself, what's the big deal? No, you were granted this territory. Don't ever lose your reverence for what God has carved out for you and allocated you. Your portion is what we used to call it, which I taught a whole series on portion. If you want to find it, Connie or somebody will put it in the notes there. Now, let's shift gears. We got 15 minutes. I got these points. Here we go. Bear in mind that the dark, contaminating forces, there are dark forces, containing forces. There are forces that like to contaminate. What do you mean by contaminate? They like to consume your energy. Consumption will contaminate you. Addiction will contaminate. Distraction. What do you think about Matthew 4, the parable? The cares of the world, the lust of other things, the deceitfulness of riches. What? This is my portion. This is my assigned jurisdiction. And something will be over here saying, ignore, hey, over here. And what am I looking over here? You're taking your eyes off of all that gestation and development. Going through that birthing, you're in this place. God's given it. You may not even function in that place anymore, because it may be you thought you would be in a room forever. You know, my pastor on the first day of ministry school called it the straight line, wide line. He says, this is you. This is the full plan of God for your life. And you think you're just going to go like this. He said, but that's not how it works. You go over here, you go over there, you pick up this. Oh, didn't learn something. Come back here, come back here. I mean, that's how it works. And so you're there now. And listen, if you want to fully function where you are, contamination will suck the life out of you. Consumption, addiction, distraction, care. My spiritual grandfather defined it as this. He says the cares of this life, he defines it as an over-engrossing mental affair. An over-engrossing mental affair that you are just ruminating and needling and turning it over. And the news will do that to you. The news used to be, you saw it on the newspaper, the 4,000 holes in Blackford, Lancashire, and you read it and you said, man, somebody had to count all those, and you just thought, wow. But then you went off and you drug a comb across your head and went on about your life. But now the news is 24 hours, you know, and it's there. Now not only is the news 24 hours, when you get home and sit in front of CNN, the news is 24 hours a day on your phone, and take after retake. And so next thing you know, your flourishing in your jurisdiction is being contaminated, it's being contained, it's being darkened by these forces that would seek to consume, seek to addict, seek to distract, seek to engage you in over-engrossing mental affairs. They would hold you back from fully manifesting yourself in this jurisdiction. They would try to oust you from your God-designated territory, disqualify yourself. What? Spiritual birthing got you into a place, but consumption disqualified you from functioning in that place. These forces must be resisted. That little paragraph was worth the price of admission. I don't know what you paid to get this stream today, but that little paragraph is worth it all. Here are my 3 caveats, A, B, and C. You ready? Here it goes. One of the things that happened, now these are the caveats. I'm talking about all the great things and the rooms you get into and blah, 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 blah. Here's the 3 provisos and little fine print. A, one of the things that happens in life is you gain entrance to rooms and spheres, and once you're inside them, you see their vanity. You finally got in the room, and you're like, this is empty. I thought this would be the greatest thing in the world, and I found out there that the dark forces are hollowing people out inside that room. And it's just a shell of glamour. It's not really much to it. That can happen. One time you clamored to be included. Ooh, I wish I was there, only to realize the emptiness of there. You realize the emptiness of there. Man, I wish I could get there. Man, I wish I could do that. And then you do it and you go, whew. And sometimes it's not really there's empty. It's just that you built it up in your mind that it would give you a spiritual fulfillment that there cannot give you. Only your online real connection with God and with nature and with the true wonder of the world. That's what can fulfill you. Yeah, but if I ever got invited to preach at this conference, it would do it. And then you do it. Ravi Zacharias said this, there's nothing in life like experiencing what you thought would deliver the ultimate, and it has let you down. Why? Because you misplaced the weight. The jurisdiction is for your function. It's not for your fulfillment. The emptiness of there, you say, man, there's a lot empty there. Or you notice that you got there and you start being aware of your inward depletion. That every time you're there, you feel drained. Or your lack of fulfillment. I got there and it didn't fill in the things. Maybe in your notes, you didn't find the circle to your liking. Maybe you got there and said, I finally got in. I don't really like this place. Maybe the circle didn't find you to its liking. This person wants to reform and change everything. We're pretty set in our ways. Perhaps you realize that you didn't like the you became when you were there. That's a big one. I'll say him again. I'm going fast, but it's part of my charm. You clamored to be there only to realize the emptiness of there. Or maybe it wasn't that there was empty, but when you got there, you noticed your inward depletion or your lack of fulfillment. Maybe you got there and you said, I'm in the circle. The circle's not to my liking. Or maybe you got to the circle and found out we don't like you here. Or maybe you realized that the you that you turn into when you got there, you didn't like that you that you became when you got there. All of these things are factors in the spirit adventure. Still under A. Maybe the cost of operating in the room was being extracted from your life outside the room. Maybe you got there and you did your thing, but on the back end there was a price. And you got to realize God did not open the room for you to lose yourself in there. Or God did not place you in a room for the you outside of the room to get totally distracted. Those dark forces seek to distract, to consume, to contaminate. If God has put you in a room, that's fine, but you bring what you bring to the room. Don't absorb the vanity and negativity of the room and have the price for being in that room start taking place where? Primarily collecting payment from your peace and your presence in your own life. You're in the room, you're functioning, you're at a high level. Maybe the room likes you, maybe the room fakes to like you, maybe you like them, maybe you fake to like them, maybe you think they're empty, but it's just where God has put you. But when you step out of the room, the peace in your own life and the presence in your own life is sabotaged. Why? Because even though you're outside and you're supposed to be enjoying the fulfillment, your brain is still in the room. I'm preaching better than your emoji. Yeah, amen, Karen. Thank you for that. Good. Whatever the reason that you found this room insufficient, there simply may be places relationally, financially, territorially, that you have no interest in returning. I don't want to go back there. That's okay. As Tiny Chef would say, that's blokey. I'm saying you may say, I have no interest in returning to that circus, right? I won the rat race, and I realized, wait a minute. It makes me the best rat. Denise, thank you. Thank God for you. Thank God you found us and you came on. Love to you. But just because you find places that you not necessarily want to return to, that doesn't mean you should relinquish your statehood status there. Don't give up your passport. Why? Because God gave you that. God gave you into, and you may say, I'm not going to function there. I'm not going to operate there. I was married. I'm not married now. I've known what marriage bliss feels like. I noticed the cost that it was happening. I didn't like who I became in it. I've stepped out of it. I'm not in that room. But don't ever give up your statehood, that if God ever brings you back there, that territory is yours. Family life. I've known a family life. I've known a home life where family was together and there was gatherings and there was this and that. And man, it's all sorts of chaos there. I just can't even be around it now because of how I feel when I'm there. I'm not sure I like them. I'm not sure they like me, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. You may abstain. You may say, I don't have any interest in returning back there. That's fine. But don't you give up your statehood status there. Why? Don't ever give up the expectation of a restoring of that territory. Don't hang your life on it. Don't not flourish waiting for maybe this will open up again. Maybe they'll hire me back. Maybe I'll get my own band together. Maybe I'll get on the road again. Maybe I'll have a church again. Maybe I'll have my own company again. Don't stall your present life, but what maybe, I'm saying you're not there now. Right? Bobcat Goldthwait, I lost my job, didn't lose it, I know where it is. There's just somebody else doing it. You're not doing it now. But just because you're not doing it now, just because you're finding your flow and your fulfillment in another jurisdiction at this time, don't give up your passport there. Why? Because there may come a time you say, I think I might want to go back to that. And it's not foreign to you. It's native to you. My God, my God, my God. Yeah, Bob, never burn a bridge. So, B, once you own the access, catch this in your notes. It's going to come to you quick. If you're just tuning in, you are right on time at the richest. It's the biggest and the largest, what's happening right now. Once you own the access, as opposed to the access owning you, I'll say it again. Once you own the access, instead of the access owning you. Man, if I could do it, how do I have to morph myself to get in there? How do I have to change myself to get in? Who do I need to be? What do I need to say? How do I need to, once that access owns you. But once you can just be fully you and they still want you, now you own the access. Once you own the access, and you already know I don't mean, I'm just myself. And if that's belligerent, bullying bears in Biloxi, well then, once you own the access, as opposed to the access owning you, any return visit is guaranteed to be different simply because you are. Man. You go back to that place, you go back to that function. I ever go back to a conference, people stopped talking to me, stopped preaching with me. People walked out of conferences and said, if he's preaching, I ain't coming. I have no interest in going back there. I have no interest in being hated or despised or whatever. I'm just trying to pour out what is in me to try to offer something to make this world a little richer. That's all I'm trying to do. Well, what happens if you get back on that conference circuit? What happens if a church is crazy enough and bold enough to have you in and say, my God, bring us the person of Jesus Christ without all the weaponized, nationalized crap, and just tell us what we should have been doing instead of getting on the right team with the right God, with the right book, going to the right place, and everybody else burning it. What was Christ trying to say? If anybody ever has that crazy notion again, my experience in that territory will be different. Why? Because I'm not the same person. If you ever get back to marriage, you're not who you were when you got divorced at 24. You ever get back to owning your own business? Oh, man, that was a heartbreaker. It went good for 2 years. That thing crashed, man. It took me 8 years to get out of that kind of stuff. Listen, I know you have no interest in returning back there. I get that you have no, but don't give up your statehood status. Why? Because if God ever put you back there, I feel like I'm getting ready to step out on my own again. And, man, it's bringing up all that PTSD. It's bringing up all that trauma. Whoa. I know you're feeling danger, but you are not the same person you were when you were there last time. We could talk all night. It's not going to change the way I feel, baby. Once you become sufficiently grounded in the source of your jurisdictional entree, once you know God has put you there, that God and the Spirit, once you've grounded yourself in the source, wait a minute, I'm here because God has opened a door, and you've gotten soberly confident in your qualification. What do you mean soberly confident in my qualification? I know what I'm doing here. God has taken me through this. I've got the hope of experience under my belt. Once you become grounded in the source of your jurisdictional entree, soberly confident in your qualification through your gift cluster development mastery, once you do that, you will experience whatever territory you occupy on a higher dimension. Why? Because I know how I got here, and I know who I am in this place because God has brought me here. You will experience whatever territory you occupy. If you go back to one from your past, if you enter a new one in your present, if you're in the future or an again territory, you'll experience that territory in a higher dimension. Why? Because you have trained. You have changed. And maybe when you get back there, you'll experience the proper way for the first time. Maybe when you owned a business, or maybe when you were married, or maybe when you were in school, or maybe when you tried to get your degree, or maybe when I don't know where you were before. I don't know where you were before, but if you ever go back to that place, if you ever get to a territory and you understand, wait a minute, I've gone through development. I've gone through birthing. This is entree given to me by God. I know who I am here. I've learned a lot. I'm not the same person. You're going to have a different experience in that territory. Why? Because it's not even the same you in that place. Yeah. Whew. All right, we're closing. Someone say you're late. Depends on what clock you're reading. Does anybody really know what time it is? I mean, does anybody even care? C, territory is never the end. It's the means. Hey, Denise, we love you. Territory is never the end. It's not about getting there. It's the means to bringing forth something. I'm going to tell you what it is. What is the means? Getting in these territories is the means to the fully realized you. The fully realized you. Getting in the territory was not, hey, I'm here. I'm here because the work in me for this season should be fully realized and manifested. Real key, right? You were sent out beyond your recall. You had a conversation with God before you were born. Think of the Hebrew prophet Jeremiah. While I was in my mother's womb, God pulled me aside and said, "Psst, hey, this is my ASMR video of telling you that you're called to do these things. You're a prophet to the nation." Do you remember that? Somewhere deep inside me, but you're sent out beyond your recall. Well, I'm out beyond my recall. What am I guided by? You're guided by the limits of your longing. What do you mean the limits of your longing? What is in your heart to do? Follow. How do I develop my gifts? How do I develop them? You follow the flow. You flow with your gift cluster to the limits of your longing, not the limits of your lust. Not the limits of your ego, not the limits of your appetite, not the limits of your pride, not the limits of your avarice or your greed. That's not what we're following. You're following the limits of your longing. God, there's a bigger me that needs a bigger fish tank to be in, and I'm going to go through the process. But when you birth me, I'm going to unfurl my extra tentacles to take up this space because there's a longing in me to occupy. Not my lust, not I want it. So people think my greatest revenge is success. That's so stupid. The greatest revenge you have is success. That's so weak. That's so empty. There's nothing about revenge. It's not, look, they thought bad of me and now look how good they think of me. That's all ego. You're not prepared. That was not the purpose of your jurisdiction. The purpose of your jurisdiction is there is a blossoming, blooming, fruitful you that needs that place to blossom, bloom, and fruit. Longing fully humanizes yourself. Your longing will fully humanize other, but your lust will dehumanize yourself. It will dehumanize other. The goal is the full you. That's what God released into the world. You, that the full you is what's still alive inside you, despite all of the chaos that you came from. The condition approaches, the condition of responses to your life, believe it or not, all of that is still alive. You are still alive beneath all of that. I close now with a quote. Whew! I'm glad you stuck around. Here we go. I close now with this quote. Someone said, who said it? It doesn't really matter. But I came across this letter and it blessed me. And I'm going to bless you with it now. Don't tune out. My God, you made it this far. This is a letter from a friend to a friend. It says this: every person is the sum total of their reactions to experience. As your experiences differ and multiply, jurisdiction, you become a different person. And hence your perspective changes. This goes on and on. Every reaction is a learning process. Every significant experience alters your perspective, a new you. I just came across this quote like Thursday, and I've been trying to get you here 5 weeks, and I said, I could have just read this quote 5 weeks ago. So it would seem foolish, would it not, to adjust our lives to the demands of a goal that we're going to see from a different angle every day. Here's my goal. But because you're changing, you're looking at the goal. My goal is money. But when you get money, you might not even be that same person. My goal is a house. My goal is a country club. My goal is a car. But the you that would achieve the goal might not even see it the same way. So it seems foolish to go after a goal that you see differently. How would we ever hope to accomplish anything other than galloping neuroses? The answer then must be not to deal with goals at all. I want you to get rid of goals. Or not with tangible goals anyway. The answer is not to put our faith in tangible goals. That would be at best unwise. We do not strive to be firemen. We do not strive to be bankers. We do not strive to be police officers nor doctors. What we're striving to be is ourselves. Oh. This explains my whole life. It's why I want to write this and that. It's why I want to stand on a pulpit and minister life to the brokenhearted and stand on a stage and tell silly, inappropriate jokes. It's why I'm fancy enough to talk to very rich and powerful people and completely home talking to the most down-to-earth, could care less about any of that people. Because I'm not seeking, what is your goal? I have one goal, to be the full me. That's the goal. We do not strive to be doctors or police officers or bankers we strive to be ourselves. We're getting there. But don't misunderstand me. I don't mean that we can't be a fireman or a police officer or a doctor, but that we must make the goal but that we must make the goal conform to the individual rather than making the individual conform to the goal. In every person, heredity and environment, your gift cluster, your experience, your exposure, all the things we've talked about, have combined to produce a creature of certain abilities and desires. We've said this, including a deeply ingrained need to function in such a way that their life will be meaningful. That's the thing. There's no meaning in the goal. There's only meaning in being fully you. A person has to be something. That person has to matter. I have to matter. You have to matter. And as I see it, the formula runs this. A person must choose a path which will let her abilities function at maximum efficiency towards the gratification of her desires. That's it. The path you're looking for, a path to be a doctor, path to own my own company, path to be a millionaire. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a path that says, let me find a path that lets my abilities function at maximum energy, maximum efficacy and efficiency for the gratification of desires. In doing so, she's fulfilling a need, giving herself an identity. She avoids frustrating her potential by choosing a path which puts limits on her self-development, and she avoids the terror of seeing the goal wilt. It didn't turn out to be what I thought. Rather than bending herself to meet the demands of that which she seeks, she has bent the objective to conform to the way she was wired. In short, she has not dedicated her life to reaching a predefined goal, but has rather chosen a way of life she knows she will fully enjoy. The goal is absolutely secondary. It is the functioning toward the goal that is important. And it seems almost ridiculous to say that a person must function in a pattern of their own choosing. It seems, why should you say that? For to let another person define your goals is to give up one of the most meaningful aspects of your life, your definitive act of will, which makes every person an individual. A woman who procrastinates in her choosing will inevitably have her choice made for her by circumstance. I'll say it again. A person who procrastinates in their choosing will inevitably have their choice made for them by circumstance. So if you now number yourselves among the disenchanted, then you have no choice but to accept things as they are or to seriously seek something else. My God, that's me. That's me. I'm sitting there going, this isn't it. This isn't it. What I thought it would be. I thought I would be, I want a ministry, and I think the goal is that I should have a television thing, and we should be on 6 days a week, and we should be Kenneth and Gloria, and we'll just teach like that. And I found out that the goal was a worthwhile goal. It just wasn't me. And I would fast and pray, God, am I supposed to be this or this? Should I go into the politics, into the human rights thing, or should I stay in the pulpit? And every time it was both. Well, should I do this or this? Yes. Should I write these silly plays and scary movies and funny things, or should I be writing spiritual books? Yes. What do you mean? Yes. The thing is not what is the goal. The thing is, who are you? But beware of looking for goals. Instead, look for a way of life. Decide how you want to live and then see what you can do to make a living within that way of life. But you say, I don't know what to look. Where to look? I don't know what to look for. And there's the crux. Is it worth giving up what I have to look for? Is it worth giving up what I have to look for something better? I don't know. Is it? That's the story of my life. Why couldn't I just sit still? My mother used to say, Mike, you mess up a free lunch. You just can't leave well enough alone. Everything is going good. Your church is going good. Your life is going good. And you always just screw it up. And that's true. But you know why I screwed it up? Because the fish tank was pressing on one of my tentacles that I wanted to unfurl. And so I leave the fish tank. And I'm more myself. But yeah, you were here, man. You had and now you're here. No, I was here in a cage. Now I'm here. Able to stretch out. Who can make the decision but you? But even by deciding to look for something for that new life, you go a long way towards making your choice. I'm not trying to send you out, he says, on the road in search of Valhalla, but merely pointing out to you that it is not necessary to accept the choices handed down to you by life as you know it. There's more to it than that. No one has to do something they don't want to do for the rest of their lives. They just have to find themselves and be fully that person. I love it. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I think we'll end there. I hope you were blessed today. I hope you were blessed today. I hope something good came into your life today. I'd like you to consider being a blessing to us, being a blessing to my family, being a blessing to us. If you feel like, man, here's the only thing. Pastor Mike, I'm different than I was before I turned this on. Something has in the plinko of my life, a new thing has entered. In the dominoes of my life, another strain of dominoes has entered. And if that's a blessing to you, then I ask you to consider being a blessing to us. If we've been a little bit of blessing, be a little bit of blessing. If you say, my God, this is changing my life, then I thank you for change our lives. And everybody, that means something different. But thank you just for saying, well, I see value in what you do, Pastor Mike. I see value. That's part of being in a church. Part of what we go to church for is there's a preacher or a preacheress, and she's up there every week giving us something, and we walk out as different people. And we should support that. And I thank you for supporting that. But the other part of the church is the embodiment of Christ. The people who say, I'm going to be like Christ, and I'm going to do what happened in Acts chapter 10. I'm going to spend my whole life with the Holy Spirit upon me, going out, seeing others, embodying love, easing suffering. And there's a not yet world of no war and no poverty and no disease and no sickness, where no parents are grieving and no children are left. That world is there, and there are no parentless children there. There are no childrenless parents there. There is no domestic violence there. There is no homelessness and hunger there. And I'm part of that not yet. I'm going to bring some of the not yet suffering here in the world. Why? Because I am an ongoing embodiment of Christ. Somebody said, well, I set aside $400 a month to, I give it to my church. You want me to give that to you? No, I don't. I want you to say, okay, God, this is what I set aside for my church. What part should I give to what's transforming my life? And what part should I go out and be Jesus in the earth? Who can I get food? Who can I get water? The weather is changing. Somebody needs encouragement. Whose house burned down? Who do I know? Who do I not know? Who am I going to come across? Instead of asking, you've heard me say it, my spiritual dad said it 2 months ago, instead of asking God, what's the purpose of my life? Instead ask God, how do you want to manifest yourself through me today? This is Christianity. This is following Christ. Not signing them up for the plan so they don't go to hell when they die. We were deceived into that sacrificial blood offering nonsense that God just cut up an animal and, he won't destroy your village. That's all the nonsense. That's what they thought God was. And Jesus said, God is not that at all. And boy, we took the cheaper for the deeper. But not you. You're following Christ. And the real words of Christ are not, get born again or I'll put you in hell. That's easy. I signed up for the team. Look at me. The real challenge of Christ is you call yourself a person of faith and religion, walk every day bringing dignity and healing in this earth. That's true religion. Stop focusing this way. Start putting all that energy this way. Now you are my disciple indeed. Boy, we were tricked, but we won't get fooled again. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part. Now I'd like to pray.